Good afternoon and welcome to the second part of the Virginia SBDC's Corona Kickstart webinar series. My name is Tracy Nyer and I'm the facilitator for today's webinar. Today's webinar, Understanding Your Customers, Do You Know Who Is Listening, is one of our educational offerings of the Virginia Small Business Development Center. The Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one counseling services are available at no charge. For more information or to schedule an appointment, reach out to your local office. And if you aren't sure where your local office is, you can find that by visiting virginiasbdc.org. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today's session, Mary Noyes-Joint. As a marketing strategist with more than 25 years experience, Mary brings an exceptional knowledge base to all marketing activities, including branding, positioning, strategic planning, corporate identity, web presence, content marketing, and budget oversight. Over the years, Mary has supported clients ranging from small business boutique companies to Fortune 500 corporations. Recently, Mary has joined the Loudoun SBDC as a business advisor, working with small businesses and entrepreneurs to help them with challenges they face and opportunities that arise as it applies to marketing communications. Her ultimate goal is in everything she does, is to help companies succeed and grow. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. We're recording today's presentation and it'll be uploaded to our website, virginiasbdc.org. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those into the question and answer window and Mary will do her best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, here's Mary.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate it and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you everyone for joining. As Tracy said, this is part 2 of our series. And we're going to be talking about audiences here. If you missed the first series, branding and messaging, I believe that's going to be up online if it isn't already. Today we're talking about audience. Next Tuesday we'll be talking about reaching your audience. So once you know who they are, and then the last phase, which is a week from today, will be leadership and crisis. So I look forward for everyone joining us for the next series as well. What we're going to be talking about today really is understanding your audience and why is it important to you, their expectations of you, and also thinking of their current state of mind in the situation we're in with COVID-19, how you can figure out who's listening to you, and then really what does all this mean to you? So let's get started. A very famous copywriter in the marketing industry, so don't be surprised if many of you have never heard of this gentleman, had said about emotions are the fire of human motivation. So they drive all of our buying decisions. So if you can harness that in your customers, you are unbeatable. And a lot of times with audiences, too many people rely on what used to be the old tried and true of demographics. So they're, male, 35 to 65, this level of income in this region of the country. And that's great because it gives you part of a profile, but that's only a picture. When you truly get to an understanding of what motivates a customer, you can then really meet their needs. And you can also discover if maybe you can't meet their needs. So you don't spend time communicating to them and wasting some of your hours and budget on this. So these are important things you can learn. So, and all customers have wants and needs, but they also have expectations of you and expectations of what they want from you. And especially in today's environment, I know, I'm sure a lot of businesses are seeing that. People are at different phases and different levels of expectations on how you're going to take care of them or the product or what's going on. So all of these are very, very important things when you are thinking about understanding your audience. You also, when you do this, I love technology. need to understand their expectations. I apologize for that. I actually stole this from Salesforce. And I'm sure many of you have heard of Salesforce. They are a big brand, which, by the way, they are working hard on their customer experience. I was just on a Salesforce Live chat where Mark Benioff, the CEO, was hosting and spoke with one of their partners on what they're doing and how they're all supporting their communities and the world at large during COVID-19, but also how they're using their products to help customers. And then they had a concert by Alicia Keys. So they're really raising the bar on taking care of the community and making people feel connected during this time. But just an example of someone doing some good things. But back to audience expectations. If you look here, this is something I stole from one of their reports. 80% of customers say that the experience they have with the company is as important as the products they buy. So how they experience your customer service, how they experience your environment is extremely important. And they also are 95% or more likely to be loyal if they trust you. Trust right now during this time is a huge, important part of it. People want to know that they're going to stay healthy and stay safe, even if they're eating your food or visiting your store or having meetings with your employees, etc. They want to know that you're taking the steps for them. So trust is key. And I know you heard some of this in our previous, if you were at our previous invitation about brand. I know the ladies from Loud and Clear Marketing spoke a lot about brands building trust with their customers, and it's very important. And then 67% say that their expectation of a good experience is higher than it was before. With all of the technology and the evolution of our different industries, people have, like we said, a lot higher expectation. And then you add COVID-19 in there, and it adds another level. So speaking of that, knowing your customers' expectations, it's even more important to know where they are now. And you need to match your audience's state of mind. Right now, this is actually something I stole from Business to Community, but it is outlining what right now the global brand narrative is. But it's also showing you really where the audiences are. There have been 3 phases, the education phase, the solidarity phase, and then the new normal, which is we're moving into. But if you look at this, right now in the May 2020, you have customers in all 3 phases. And that's very, very important to understand from you. They are, some of them you'll need to educate. Some of them, you need to give them the motto of we're in this together. And some of them, you need to talk about the new normal and what this new normal can mean. And the other important thing to understand about this is that when we are probably going to be cycling through this phase again, which is interesting. So this is an important graph, I feel, in understanding how your brand, I know this is what some of the larger ones that you've seen, the Doves and the McDonald's and all of those, the Ubers that were discussed in the brand and messaging section have been doing, but it's just as important on a local level to make sure you're walking your customers through, and probably even more because you're really part of their community. So because I was looking at this and researching this and thinking about it, it made me also wonder about some other things. So I did some research about the stages of grief, and I found the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. And I don't know about you, but the charts look very similar to me, which tells you a lot about your customer's current state of mind. And if you also look at it, it also tells you a lot about the communication that you need to do for customers. So in the first phase of denial and anger, there's that information and communication, which is where we are with the phase 1. And then during the depression phase, which is where we are with phase 2, if we're in this together, you're not alone, you're here. And that's where we give the emotional support. And then as we start to move to the new normal, which is the bargaining and the acceptance of Can I go here and do the 6 feet of distancing? How many people, what am I comfortable with? Do I have to sit outside? And that's where we give the guidance and direction around the new normal, how we will help them, how we will make sure that they stay safe and healthy, how we'll take care of their families. So to me, it seemed very interesting to keep that in mind when you're talking about your communication with your customers and think about sort of where they are in their grief cycle. But what is this? This is great. I've told you about their expectations and I've told you about where their state of mind is. But then how can you find out who's listening to you and who you should even talk to? And this is where really sort of the rubber hits the road. And it's not that hard. This is where a lot of people will talk to you about buyer personas and customer journey mapping. And those are very, very important things. But they can also be very simplified, especially right now when we all need to just get the job done. We're trying to keep businesses open and keep customers happy, and the environment is changing sometimes daily. So I've sort of developed this easy 3 steps that you can go through. The first thing is the research, and this is where you look at your analytics. This is where you go into your website or your social media. You see where people are connecting with you. Are they connecting with you on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram? Are they coming to your website and seeing what's going on there and what messages you have as to your hours or what you're offering, or how many customers can come in, or are your employees back in the office yet? And look at where you're talking to them. Also look at reviews, and look at reviews of what they're saying about you. And not just about you, but about your competitors as well. Some of the best copy for advertising has come from customer reviews, to be honest. That's one of the first things that copywriters go to, is they go to a customer review and they see what happy customers are saying, and even unhappy customers can teach you a lot. So look at those. And if you don't have reviews, but you have social media, go look at the comments on social media. Go look how people are engaging and what they are saying or not saying. If there's something that you're trying to do, but no one's talking about it, that tells you something as well. And then right now, compare all these things to what those looked like prior, early March, and what those look like today. How have they changed? We know business has changed a lot. We know your messages have changed a lot. How have your customers changed? Were your customers prior to this mostly, walk-in traffic, or were a lot of them online savvy? If they weren't online savvy, now you have more online savvy customers, and what do they look like? So it's understanding how that may have changed and how you may need to change with it. And then you begin to define. Once you have the information, you begin to define this. And this is where I say, write down what your customers look like. An example is, I was working with an SBDC customer, and they wanted to move, they are in healthcare, and they wanted to move from more Medicare patients to more private pay patients. So we literally went through the exercise of, okay, do you have private pay patients? Yes. Okay. What kind of person are they? Are they more male or female? Are they more affluent? Do they like to talk to you by phone, by email, by text? How, where are they living? What questions are they asking? And that starts to give you what everybody calls a buyer persona. That starts to give you, what does this person look like? Because if you can take that perfect customer and replicate it and speak to them, you can reach more of them, more people just like them. And that's all we mean when I say define it. Just sort of start thinking these things in your head and just making notes. Because again, this may continue to evolve. And then, as I said, how are they responding? Is it phone? Is it email? Is it text? Is it social media? Is it your website, contact form? And then once again, looking to what they're saying to you. as well as your competitors. Keeping in mind through all of this, it's important to understand what your competitors are doing and how they're responding or not responding, because that can also show you holes that you could fill, or areas where maybe you're missing out. And then you begin to communicate. So in the previous presentation, they talked a lot about messaging, and they talked a lot about your values and what you offer a customer. This is where you then begin to take those and express your value messages, sort of what you bring, what you solve for this customer, how you can answer their need, how you can answer their expectations to all these different audiences, because you may have 3 to 5 different audiences. So you then start to translate those into actionable conversations. And as always, through everything, speak authentically. That, especially today, is most important. And in the beginning of all this, my colleague Eric Bird and I, when literally they first started shutting down everything for COVID-19, and we realized a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. We had people walking into the Loudoun SBDC, phone calls, and it was the first day. And he and I sat down and developed this communications process, and it's actually up online at loudonsbdc.com. And it walks you through sort of 3 things to talk to your employees and your and customers. 3 things to keep in mind through whatever you're saying. Remind them that you're aware of the situation and where we are in it and how it's affecting them. You care. These are the things you're doing to take the steps, and you're here. We're still operating, we're still in business, and this is how we can still service you and help you. So that's a really good tool as well when you're developing your communication. You can go take a look at that. And this is really a quick process. And this is something that once you communicate and you do that for a while, you come back and research again. Because like I discussed before, we're going to be going through this and people are going to continue to evolve. And right now you have customers that are in all 3 of those spaces. So hopefully we'll start moving, but unfortunately we'll probably hit the education phase again at some point in the fall. So it's going to be a road, but if we keep this in mind and keep our customers in mind, they will continue to support you and keep you going. Now, really, what does all this mean to you? Well, right now, listening to your customers is more important than ever. Like I've said, perceptions are shifting daily. But they are telling you what they want and what they need and what they expect. So if you listen, you can hear that. We have something that we talk about a lot when you're sharing your company, and people can either know you, like you, or trust you. And we say pick 2. So they can know you and like you, they can like you and trust you, they can know you and trust you. So try and get as much of that as you can as you're expressing them about their wants, their needs, and their expectations. Again, continue to review your analytics, reading your customers' comments, reading those reviews, whether they're good or bad, because they're all telling you something. And again, keeping your competitors in mind. Making sure you define your audience. So they're not always who you think they are. They're not always, what you think they might be, or they're not probably who they were in February 2020. Some of them may be, but you probably picked up new ones. So it's important to know those so you can also capitalize on that. And how do you keep them when things do go to this new normal, or things get back to a little bit of a normal phase? Or are they a better audience segment than you had before? Maybe you want to figure out how to grow them. So these are important things when you're looking at it, and really write it down. Don't just keep it in here. I know it's hard, but write it down, because then you can compare it when you come back. And again, because this is an ongoing process and you do need to come back. It's not hard, but I would recommend, depending upon your business, this is something you might want to look at doing monthly or every other month or quarterly, you know, depending again on you. If it's, you know, it's not hard. I've tried to break it down for you so that there isn't this mystique around it. And this is really, you know, how you can do it and how you can help make yourself successful. I've thrown a lot of information out here, and I had a lot of stats that I didn't give you, and I apologize, but I do think I gave you some of the more important ones, and I hope you found it helpful. Just so if you want to go look yourself, and I apologize, my thing. So or if you actually want to seek some more help, you can come to the Loudon SBDC. We have coaches who would love to talk to you and work with you, and we can work with you through a lot of this, a lot of your phases of this. The Virginia SBDC has a lot of virtual sessions going on. I recommend going to their page. There's a ton that they're offering. And then if you would like to speak with me at the end of this, there is, I have my information, and you can contact me either directly at Joint Communications, or you can come to the Loudon SBDC, whichever you wish. Here are some of the resources I used for this. So if any of you want to dig in and read more, especially the Salesforce, the state of the connected customer was a really big one. And then the business to community about the brand narrative and how it's evolving. That's another important one. And then I pulled the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief. I'm kind of a nerd and did a little research on that. So this is me, how you can contact me. There will be at the end of, after this, that I believe Tracy has, there will be a handout going out about that will review the research, define, communicate. It breaks it down. It's a quick infographic that I think she's going to send to everyone. Tracy, I hope I didn't steal your thunder. But she will be sending it out, and everyone can have it. So that is my presentation. I hope it was helpful for everyone.
Great, thank you, Mary. So if you have any questions, please type those into the Q&A window, and we'll answer them. I have a couple of them here. Hold on. Do you need to work with an outside resource to do all of this?
You don't have to work with an outside resource. This is something that you can definitely, if you have access to your analytics, can do it. But it is something, if you want to come to your local SBDC and meet with a coach, they can probably help you with that. Or if you're inclined, there are a lot of folks out there, a lot of great groups that can definitely help you work with this. But I tried to make this something that you could really look at and handle yourself, understanding your customer. So.
How often should I go through the research, define, communication process?
Again, I think it depends on your company. Right now, things are in a pretty big state of flux, but everybody's business is being affected very differently. So I would say, you know, if you can't do it monthly, because you are also trying to run a business, either every other month or at least quarterly, I would take a look at where your customers are, just to make sure you're meeting them and meeting their needs and answering what they want from you.
Let's see. Too many windows here. Trying to keep the chat and the question and answer.
I closed everything so I wouldn't be distracted.
Up at the same time. What do I use to define a customer if I'm not using just demographics?
So again, that is going into your analytics, or which is when your Google Analytics, which tells you on your website, it tells you how many people are coming to your site, what pages they're going to, how long they're staying, but also your social media analytics, which looks at each one of your posts, and it speaks to which ones people you have the most responses on, what, you know, and you can see which ones they're answering. And it may not even be the post that you thought was the most informational or the best post you did. I know a lot of people who would be like, I didn't even, I have a friend who's doing a baking show on Facebook Live, and she had one whole session that was nothing about baking, and it had like 1,000 views and shares, and it went crazy. So understanding what your audience is responding to is important. And looking at reviews, if you don't have reviews, the comments on any of your social media are important. And then again, competitors, go check out your competitors' social media, or go check out and see what reviews they're getting on Google or on any of the other review sites, and see what people are saying there, because that can give you a lot of good insight as well.
So I know from looking at, you know, all of the analytics for our stuff, it can be really confusing to know what you're looking at. Is there some place that you can go to understand better what those analytics are saying?
Yes, there's a lot of resources. Actually, Google has a lot of good resources on the sort of on their helpline about how the best ways to review it. And they give you, even by industry, you know, what's a good bounce rate, what's a good time on site rate, what is a good engagement rate. So they explain to you how to read that. And then on social media as well, each of the different channels will tell you, you know, what is considered good at their level. So I wouldn't, you know, it's interesting because people kind of can get very easily lost in the analytics. And I agree. That's why I say, you know, kind of look at what pages are going, where are people spending the most time on your site? Like, what information are they really reading about? And like I said, it may not be like, if you're an IT services company or a government consultant, and you have an enterprise services page that's what you want to push, but everybody's going over to this other IT services page. That's great that's what you want to push, but this is where they're responding. You know, this is what they're looking for. So maybe you should pull that to the front. You know, a lot of companies right now are talking about cybersecurity, and they're talking about networking and collaboration online and working from home. So make sure what you are putting out there, it's not just what you think they want to hear, because they're telling you by what they're engaging in. I hope that was helpful.
That's a really great point. Well, that's all the questions that we have for today. Thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. Mary gave us some great takeaways during her presentation. And as she said, I'll be emailing you a link both with today's webinar recording and the handout that she mentioned. But before you go, I want to remind you that this series continues on Tuesday with part 3, reaching your customers in a changing marketplace. And then again, next Thursday, the final presentation is leadership and uncertainty. More information about these sessions can be found on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Also on our website, you can find the business recovery webpage, which the Virginia SBDC developed to help owners carefully plan for and execute their business's new strategies as they reopen or relaunch their business during this really challenging time. These detailed guides cover a broad range of critical considerations, and they're not meant to be used by themselves. They were designed to be used in collaboration with the business consultants. So again, I encourage you to reach out to your local small business development center, to the counselor you've been working with, or if you're new to the SBDC, we have a locations page on our website that'll help you find the location closest to you. So thanks everyone for attending today. Enjoy your afternoon.